Lucanius is freed by a Christian priest, but the priest himself employs pagan arts to do so. In a subterranean cavern, golden images of the dead sit motionless before an eternal banquet, and then are stirred to terrible life when an intruder steals an ornament from the table. And even as reality is twisted into fable, so fable appears as reality, and Malmesbury soberly records the discovery of the body of the giant Pallas, of whom Virgil sang, still incorrupt, so that there was visible the gash which Turnus made in the middle of his breast, measuring 4.5 feet. But lapped though it was by pagan legend, Rome was preeminently the sacred city of Christendom. And though the thronging pilgrims might marvel at the body of Pallas, they would turn from it with a shudder and cross themselves, the heroes of the old city being the demons of the new, and seek more holy relics. The Romans made much profit by providing these gullible northerners with fragments of corpses, of dubious origins, but sanctified by the fact that they were purchased in Rome. And when the relics had been purchased, and the shrines visited, and the offerings of copper or gold made at the tomb of Peter, the pilgrims turned to explore the wondrous city, as pilgrims always had and always would. For them there was a species of guidebook, the description of the Golden City, a fantastic mishmash of legend and garbled history, compiled by scribes from oral traditions over many generations. Beginning with the foundation of the city by Noah and his sons, it took the pilgrim down to the present, guiding him to the great monuments of the past, explaining in confused and inaccurate detail the complex interlocking machinery of imperial, papal, and civic government that ruled Rome. It also provided posterity with one of the few descriptions of the city during the dark centuries. Rome had changed little from the final form established by the Emperor Aurelian when he built the great enclosing walls in the 3rd century AD. They were Rome's final defence. Whatever else was suffered to fall into ruin, the walls were maintained, generation after generation and century after century, encompassing a city that would otherwise have become a shapeless sprawl. In the first decade of the Christian era, during the years of Augustan splendour, there had been a tremendous upsurge in building, culminating in the reign of Nero, when vast gleaming structures swallowed whole streets and areas. After the collapse of the empire, the city suffered endless sacks, but it was the Romans themselves who dismantled the classical city, and that for the most humdrum of reasons. Marble, when burned, yields lime, which can be used for plaster. The scores of lime kilns in the city were each fed by irreplaceable fragments of past glory. The great blocks of travertine that formed the core of the walls were broken up to make byres and hovels. Those columns that escaped the lime kilns, or were not incorporated into new churches, lay where they fell, protected at least by the accumulated rubbish. But Augustan Rome had been built upon such a colossal scale that though it was plundered daily for centuries, the centre of the city survived as an identifiable entity. A contemporary of Augustus or Nero could still have found his way easily enough around the 10th century city, recognizing most of the monuments of his day, though he would have been appalled by the filthy conditions of the streets themselves. Many were permanently blocked by collapsed buildings. All stank in high summer. The city that had known the splash and play of countless fountains now endured an endless drought, for the great aqueducts were ruined. Nevertheless, within the circle of the Aurelian walls, the ground plan of the city remained largely unchanged. It was on the other side of the Tiber, on the slopes of the Vatican Hill, that the new age had made its most distinctive mark, creating a virtually separate city that was to control Rome over the coming centuries. Until 850, the Vatican Hill was outside the walls of Rome. Even Aurelian had not thought it worthwhile to extend his protecting walls to this desolate area. Its plain was a fetid marsh, malarial in summer, and, in a land where men naturally gravitated to the summit of hills, its inhospitable upper slopes remained sparsely populated for centuries. Nevertheless, the increasing population in the city made even this dreary region of potential value.